Kwenye kubili 1 2 kwenye kubili.
Councillor. Good morning, honourable members. My extra 5 minutes is on the dot now, so the other member will find us on the way. She went out. You are all welcome, members of the committee, and also our guests are welcome. Let's start starting our meeting. The agenda was circulated to all members of the committee, and it is a consideration and adoption of the report, and later it will be followed by minutes. We'll consider draft minutes presentation. Let me check the credentials, Committee Secretary.
Morning, Chair, honorable members. I haven't received any apologies apart from the one from the Deputy Minister, but from the committee, we expect all members to be present.
So there is no need to record it if they were not invited. So it means they were not expected to attend the ministry. So let's just not record that. But we appreciate that they thought they should attend. But this is for the committee only. I see a hand, Honorable Ishmael.
Thank you, Chair. In case we're not finished by 1 o'clock, I need to leave by 1 o'clock, please. Thank you.
Noted. That I think we are all here. We have no member that is not in attendance. We are all here, which is good. I think as we are dealing with the report, let's have our researcher Sisanda to take us through on the report of budget review and recommendation of the portfolio committee on tourism in 2024. Thank you. Over to you. Between the two, the content advisor and the researcher, Dr. Sisanda, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members and guests. We will share the sections of the report with my colleague Sisanda. The report was circulated, the draft report was circulated, and it is our view that members have read the report, will be guided by committee chair, but our proposal in terms of dealing with the report that we just set the context of the report, then which is the part that I will do, then Sisanda will then take the committee through the observations and recommendations. If that approach is allowed, Chairperson, that is how it, instead of going page by page. But we will welcome members to, because as we are saying, we think members have already read, so members can just point us to sections of the report where certain issues have been identified, or in terms of more inputs, because it's a draft, as we always say, it's your report, Chair, as the committee, it's not ours. We're just assisting in terms of putting together some salient issues, but really it is up to the committee to add to the report or to subtract issues that maybe the committee feels is not necessary to be included in the report.
Because the report was circulated on Friday. Yeah, in that order. Yes, thank you.
As the title says, there's the budget review and recommendation report of this committee, dated 22, which is to achieve today, Chairperson and honorable members, that we get an in principle adoption of the report, meaning we'll present the report and members will make all the necessary changes. So our request, we will explain the issue of timing of as we go along. In terms of the introduction, it's just acknowledgement that this year, in the country as a whole, we are celebrating 30 years of democracy. Therefore, if you look at the tourism sector over the past 3 decades, a lot has happened, from the apartheid laws, where some sections of the community were not even allowed facilities, to a point where now you even have the previously disadvantaged communities also playing a role in the sector. Also acknowledging the issue of the clean audit of the 23-24 report in the introduction, which we think, and also looking at the arrivals, if you look at the 2019 figures and where we are now, it's apparent that the sector is really catching up, because the sector was decimated, or it came to a standstill. So we always we compare the performance of the sector to, and has caught up in some areas. And if you look at the numbers, like last year it was 8.8 million. But what is important, this committee moving forward, chairs, to really look at, because what the pandemic showed was that for recovery of this African continent arrivals, so the issue of international arrivals is good in terms of its contribution to the GDP, because when they come here they spend dollars, but when these shocks come in, when is the country through, so this is something that this committee will have to look at moving forward. And also then in terms of what the committee will be focusing on in terms of removing barriers such as visas, airlift, and moving forward. And it's just to say it is therefore the report of this committee looking at the financial and non-financial performance of SA tourism. In terms of the mandate of the committee, I think these issues were also kind of in the to understand the house of the National Assembly. Therefore, as a committee, even in terms of this BRRR 227, this is in according to revision number 9 of the addition, but in terms of addition, the Act, which is the Constitution, which is very important, which is catching up with. We say tourism is a function. It is not just the function. The provinces have a meet in terms of, for example, your local attractions and so on and so on. They are a function of a local government. The committee embark on an oversight. Normally, will be accompanied by your provincial counterparts in South East to ensure that there is that integration. So we will skip all these other issues.
As we are skipping, can you please pause a little bit? Honorable members of please make note of where you would want to raise issues on a particular area. Take note of the pages and the number of the sections and subsections of the report, so that it's going to be easier for the team to get through to where you are raising. I will try and we go through page by page at least, but in that page also note that which area would you like to raise something. Thank you. Please proceed, the doc.
Thank you, Chairperson. Then we also think in terms of setting the context given that this is the first BRRR, we normally refer to this process as BRRR. It is the first session of this committee to deal with the BRRR. We therefore thought maybe it is important to then outline the purpose. The budget review and recommendations report is a creature of legislation, the Money Bills and Amended Procedures and Related Matters Act 9 of 2009. So there is the whole process that is set out in the Money Bills Act in terms of what Parliament must do. So there are two sets of recommendations that are made on our chair members. Finance, as you conduct oversight over the portfolio, there will be issues that in the sector. The increase by a particular niche tourism sector that you think needs to be highlighted. Therefore, it needs a separate budget. So the issues that the committee can make to let me make an example. Before the committee has made a recommendation, defense budget will be in the appropriate. The department will be given money to say use this money only for this particular area that has been identified by the committee. But also on non-financial issues in terms of all the issues related to tourism. It will be in regards to the budget of the department and many other issues. For example, it may be issues that, for example, the issue of visas. You may make an example to the Minister of Tourism to engage the Minister of Affairs to deal with visas. But in terms of timing, it has done in October. The members are aware that on the 30th, I think the mid-term budget, mid-term budget policy statement, MTPS. Now, the timing is such should have adopted their BRRRs. Hence, our request is that today we emerge with a report that is approved, amendments, then through the chairperson, once the chairperson has certified herself that we have effected all the changes, then the secretary will then send the document for ATC. It has to be the MTPS. Now, in terms of the method, also Minister of Tourism now, in terms of required to table the annual report to Parliament with the annual financial statement, annual report, then that the committee will then develop only based on the annual reports. You look at all other work that the committee has done throughout the issues that were identified during deal with, like for example, DPSA, CIFA, and so on and so on, because those are the issues that you have engaged the other method. The report might be rejected because it has, the House needs to know when did the committee actually consider this. We may even then after on 22, so that it finalizes that issue of method there. So the outline of all committees follow is a standardized. If you also see that the format of all committees is almost the same. So you have constitutional, legislative. So these are the issues that the committee has been taken through before, even when we were doing the legacy report. So we don't dwell much in terms of this missionally. Legislature has gazetted the policy, the white paper. Then they can go ahead and develop the act. Sometimes it becomes an academia. There is what comes with policy and legislation. It's like policy, legislation, and strategy. These three things. It depends on the school of thought academically you want to achieve. So you develop the law to fulfill the policy at a country level. So this is one of the things that is in the recommendations to say now the amendment needs to be tabled in Parliament because the policy has been finalized. Then you have the issue of previous year's financial performance, and there are tables that are given in the report. And then you have the financial and non-financial and service delivery issues, all the 4 programs of the department, how much budget on non-financial issues in terms of them meeting targets and not meeting targets. What were the issues, for example? You will note issues of the payment of service providers within 30 days. All those issues are captured in the report, and they fall under that number 3 there. Then you look at service delivery issues in terms of the impact of the programs of the department under to then take through the observations and recommendations, I think is page 80. But as the chairperson said, honorable members, we were not skipping just for the sake of skipping. We are skipping because I think are given, because we have discussed them with the entity, with the department, but we will go back to those pages as the chairperson directed. Thank you, chairperson.
Yes, good morning, Chairperson. So I'll try and go through these as quickly as through.
Yeah, please try to please slow this time because the observations and recommendations are the most important ones. There might be grammatic error that can be corrected, but for the committee will be based our decision on. So try and be slow. Proceed.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Okay, so I'll start on page 33 under the observations. Observations have been raised for both the department as well as the entity. So we'll start with 7.1, which speaks specifically to issues around the department. Under 7.1.1, the Director General of the department and the minister has attempted to engage previous ministers that were in the portfolio basically as the issues that have been raised against the DG to 2016. And basically, as it currently stands, the minister has since written to the president to DG should be handled. And then 7.1.2, this is in relation to the audit opinion of the department. The committee here basically commends the department. So basically, it's a clean audit outcome for the 2023 full financial year. This is a considerable improvement from the previous financial year, where the department basically obtained an unqualified audit opinion with findings on non-compliance with the financial year. Then the next point is in relation to the finalization of the tourism policy review process. This has been long, and it is good to see now that it has been finalized, and this is, I think, the minister of October, and this in itself will basically pave the way for the department to initiate its own legislative review process that will come in the 7th Parliament. The next point is in relation to the spending patterns of the department in terms of its budget. The expenditure of the department was the department's budget was adjusted. Of that amount, the department spent about 2 billion, which is roughly about 96.4% of its budget. And this somewhat of an improvement, not really, compared to the 98.9% that they spending of about 88.3 million when it comes to the 2023 financial year. On the achievement of targets, this is an issue that continues to, that is the misalignment between spending and the achievement of its targets. So the department basically spent about 96% of its budget, but yet achieved only its. Okay, sorry. And then the next, here it's noted that the department incurred an under expenditure of about 88.3 million in the financial year of 2023-24, This is above. The committee urges the department to completely eradicate under expenditure in the future. 7.1.6 is in relation to irregular expenditure in the department. It is regrettable that the department incurred an irregular expenditure of about actually increased from the 36,000 that was incurred in the previous financial year. However, with that said, the committee acknowledges the fact that irregular expenditure amounting to about 25.1 million, which is the implementing agent for the department's expanded public works program, and the irregularity in this particular instance relates to contract variations that happened and indicated that written warnings were dispensed to officials that were responsible for this irregular expenditure, and in this, as a response, the committee will ensure that the department strengthens its oversight work on the work done by its implementing agents when it comes. And the next point there, and next observation, is in relation to fruitless and wasteful expenditure by the department. In the year under review, the department incurred fruitless and wasteful expenditure to the amount of 45,000 rand financial year, and the expenditure in this particular instance relates to traveling arrangements when it came to bookings, waiting times that were not double bookings when it came to traveling, after our costs, basically. However, the committee also acknowledges that these causes are times not avoidable. 7.1.8 is in relation to the department's vacancy rate. It's noted here that as of 31 March 2023, the department's positions that were vacant in the department. The committee notes that the vacancy rate is below that was actually targeted below 10%, was not achieved as per the requirement, has consistently above 4% when it comes to it of people with disabilities, which is 2% above the national target. Pointed to the department while 53 employees exited the department. There were about 19 resignations, about 5 transfers out of the department that resulted from misconduct, and also 19 contracts that expired. When it comes to, as well as the Department of Public Administration is going about when it comes to applying for and actually filling these particular vacant positions. As previously mentioned, that we gazetted the white paper, the revised, white paper on the development and promotion of a process which has been. This particular policy document was Gazette 24, and basically seeks to the following. It's the sectors contribute broader economy to volumes and revenue, increased employment as well as entrepreneurship, and as these are when it comes to growth efforts and its ability basically to respond to. The new policy also seeks to promote a more inclusive sector through increased skills development, financial support to tourism, small enterprises. And the policy also seeks to create a regulatory environment for the future, especially with regard to technological development. The next observation is in relation to the implementation of department's tourism infrastructure projects. In this regard, the committee has noted the progress of the work that has been done by the DBSA, which is the Tourism Infrastructure Project. And the DBSA was actually appointed by the department through a memorandum of agreement which was signed by both parties in November 20. MOA expired in November 2023, extended to March 2020. In a brief, the DBSA to the Commons 17 September 2024, the DBSA reported that 36 projects had reached practical completion and 21 was still, while 4 of those were on schedule. In this regard, the committee has raised its concerns when it comes to DBSA being able to 31 March 2025. The Auditor General has also raised a concern that 5 out of 17 projects that it sampled for audit had fallen behind schedule to be completed within the agreed period. So in this regard, the committee has the responsibility to ensure that it closely monitors the implementation memorandum between the Department of Tourism and BSA as projects that have not yet made completion stages. These are some of the reasons that have been raised basically by the BSA when it comes to these in implementing these projects. One of them entails poor planning. Under poor planning, the committee has highlighted that the effective consultation as well as coordination when it comes to all stakeholders involved, especially when you're looking at engagements with your local communities, and this normally happens even before the implementation of the project. So community members are not necessarily informed of what's happening, and that brings its own challenges when it comes to that. So in this particular instance, it's very important that communication is prior when it comes to engaging local communities. Another issue around poor planning speaks to the lack of conditional assessment to establish the work that needs to be done. So you find that the scope that was initially agreed upon tends to be changed, and this in itself leads to additional work, and obviously that affects the timelines of the actual project. Another issue that was raised of concern, and that is with regard to supply chain management as well as poor project management. There's an overcommitment by your professional service providers that are appointed by the DBSA, and that in itself results in the inability to render professional service at a satisfactory level. So you find that there's a lack of inadequate conditional assessment, incomplete drawings when it comes to the sites that need to be developed, and that in itself brings its own delays when it comes to finalizing projects. Poor project management is also another issue that was raised as an area of concern. Here, the main issue is the lack of effective contract management as well as monitoring process by your professional service providers. And this also comes from the overcommitment, which they sometimes fail to deliver on. And then the last point is ineffective oversight and monitoring controls. A lack of effective oversight and monitoring controls by the actual department to ensure that the delivery of these projects that are being implemented by DBSA is done in accordance with project implementation plan. So that's an area that will continue to require consistent oversight by the committee, especially between the DBSA and the department. Another area here or observation that has been by the committee is in relation to human resources at the department. Here it's in relation to the high staff turnover rate. And however, the committee does acknowledge that even in the midst of that, the turnover could also be due to the changes in terms of different ministers and obviously the changes when it comes to the officials that are appointed to some ministers. The department has assured the committee that exit interviews have not yielded any negative sentiments. So in this regard, however, the committee will continue basically to conduct stringent oversight on staff-related matters in the department. The next observation is in relation to oversight over South African tourism. In this particular instance, the committee is of the view that it is not proper that the department obtained a clean audit for the 23-24 financial year, and yet the performance when it comes to South African tourism, the entity actually obtained a qualified with findings. In this regard, the committee apportions blame to the department for not strengthening its oversight role over South African tourism. The next point, or observation rather, is in relation to the payment of service providers within the obligated 30-day period. In this particular instance, the committee has raised its concern that while the department continues to perform somewhat well when it comes to this particular issue, there continues to be delays when it actually in terms of payments in time for all service providers. And that in itself has ramifications for small enterprises, basically, that are dependent on these payments in order to run their businesses. The next observation is in relation to the challenge of visas in growing the sector. The committee notes that there is an interministerial committee to investigate how the visa backlog can be addressed and also enable visa exemption for countries which the department has identified as tourism targets. The work done by the new Minister of Home Affairs in addressing the backlog and actually introducing the envisaged online e-visa system is noted with great anticipation by the committee. The next observation is in relation to niche tourism development. Here, the committee notes that the department will be working with the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, and that the department in the Northern Cape, they will be promoting agritourism as well as astrotourism. This will ensure that less visited provinces such as the Northern Cape basically boost their tourism initiatives, endeavors, as well as that their businesses basically benefit from these projects. The next one is in relation to project management unit in the department. Here it's appreciated by the committee that the department is in the process of establishing such a unit, which will ensure that it is resourced when it comes to technical expertise. And this is expertise that's basically required in order to monitor and do oversight over infrastructure projects. This in itself will strengthen the department in that regard and ensure that infrastructure projects are delivered on time and money basically is saved in this regard. This next point is in relation to the G20 meeting that will be held in South Africa next year. The observation here by the committee is that the G20 meeting, which will be held in May 2025, and this will provide an opportunity for the country to showcase and promote its tourism attractions, including townships as well as small dorpies. The committee in this particular instance considers its participation in this event and will follow appropriate channels to ensure that it also becomes part of these engagements. The next observation is in relation to the Tourism Equity Fund. In this particular one, the committee notes with concern the impact of the legal action that was taken in February 2021 by Solidarity as well as AfriForum, and the subsequent court interdict basically that resulted in the suspension of the equity fund. For more than 2 years, implementation was hamstrung by the court case, in turn hindering progress and stopping delivery when it comes to businesses that could have used this particular fund. However, the committee is encouraged by the fact that there is movement in the implementation of the Tourism Equity Fund. However, it has raised a concern with the department, and this is specifically in regard to delays that have happened basically in terms of the disbursement of the funds. So there have been delays identified when it comes to the processing of applications. There's red tape, sabotage of applications by officials who have interest. The fund is basically being administered by CIFA, which is a small enterprise finance agency. So those challenges basically are being experienced in that particular agency. In their report, the department has indicated to the committee that the minister has met with the Minister of Small Business Development to discuss the performance of CIFA, and a report in this regard will be shared with the committee on how this can actually, the fund and the money can be speedily dispersed to applicants and qualifying beneficiaries. Okay, that's it for the department chair. I don't know, okay, sorry, I just go through the entire report. Okay. My apologies there. So then the next one is in relation, so the next observations are rather in relation to the entity itself, South African Tourism. So under 7.2.1, we're looking at the qualified audit findings here. The committee here has raised its concerns when it comes to the performance of South African Tourism as the entity in the 2023-2024 financial year obtained a qualified audit finding, and this is in relation to due to poor quality of submitted annual financial statements, as well as failure to prevent irregular expenditure in the entity. This is actually a regression from the previous financial year. There, in 2022-23, the entity actually received an unqualified opinion with findings on compliance with key legislation. This means that the audit outcomes of the entity basically have regressed, and serious recurring findings have been raised. And in this particular instance, the entity has also obtained a material irregularity which is for the first time in the tourism portfolio. This means that the entity failed to address the findings that have been made by AXA as well as the committee in the previous audit period. This in itself points to a failure in governance and incapacity by the board and senior management in delivering effective operations at the entity. 7.2.2, the observation here is in relation to the main reasons that have resulted to the qualified audit outcome by the entity. In this regard, the committee notes that the main reasons for the qualified audit opinion were as follows. The first one is in relation to marketing expenditure. Discrepancies were noted in marketing expenditure between what was recognized in the financial records and invoices management recognized using purchase orders awaiting invoices from suppliers. Due to the non-centralization of receipt of invoices, the actual invoices were not captured, and this in itself resulted in an overstatement of marketing expenditure. The next root cause is in relation to payables from exchange transactions. Purchase orders here were not matched to an invoice, and this in itself resulted in differences between what had been recognized as payables and what was actually payable as per the supplier's statements. And this was due to a lack of regular reconciliation of payables to ensure accuracy thereof and the use of purchase orders to record marketing expenditure. The next root cause is in relation to cash and cash equivalents. The cash and cash equivalent balance did not agree to the general ledger, and this is due to bank reconciliations which were not regularly and adequately prepared to reconcile differences between bank statements and underlying records. And the last root cause is in relation to cash flow from operating activities. Multiple errors in the calculation of cash flows from operating activities were noted, and this was due to a lack of adequate review of the schedules supporting the statement of cash flows, as well as instability in the actual finance unit. The next point or observation in relation to the entity is in connection to its budget allocation as well as its spending patterns. South African Tourism received an amount of about 1.28 billion from the Department of Tourism, and that added up to a total budget of about 1.57 billion for the 2023-24 financial year. Here the committee notes that a total amount of about 1.4 billion was spent by the entity across its 5 programs. An accounting surplus of about 81 million was reported in the statement of financial performance for the year that ended on the 31st of March 2024. In this regard, the committee is basically concerned with high spending while achieving less targets. And that's an issue that has been raised for continuously, basically, in terms of spending and misalignment between spending and performance. So the following were highlighted by the committee when it comes to the entity's spending patterns, and this is irregular expenditure. The entity incurred about 24.2 million when it comes to irregular expenditure for the 2023-24 financial year. And this is actually higher than the amount that was incurred in 2022, which was at 9.9 million. In terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, the entity incurred about 6.4 million in the financial year against 6.4 million that was actually incurred in the previous financial year. And then the next point is in relation to the material irregularity that has been highlighted by the Auditor General, and that amounts to about 4.1 million, and this was incurred when it came to, there was a transaction on a dome where payment was made by the entity, yet the service provider did not render any services. The next observation is in relation to its performance, to the entity's performance. So for the year under review, the entity achieved 36 of its 46 targets, and that's equivalent to about 78% achievement. This is an improvement of about 17% from its performance in the previous financial year. What's also important to highlight here is that while the entity continues to struggle in terms of aligning performance with spending, there has been substantial improvement when it comes to the role that it plays basically in improving, or rather in ensuring that tourism continues to play its role as a pillar when it comes to economic contribution to the GDP of the country. So if one looks at some of the targets in relation to the MTSF that have been achieved as a result of the efforts of the entity, it's important to highlight the issue on the growing number of international tourist arrivals in the country, where the 5-year target has been exceeded, as about 9.26 million international tourists have arrived in the country against a target of 10.3 million, which is quite exceptional, especially looking at where the sector was about 2 years back. So this in itself speaks to contributions to the economy as well as the creation of jobs. We're also looking at the financing in terms of the foreign direct spend that came from the sector. Here you're looking at how this 5-year target has also been exceeded. So about 203 billion was generated against a target of 86.7 billion, and that obviously in itself speaks to good progress when it comes to contribution to the economy. You're also looking at a growing domestic market here, where the 5-year target in this particular instance was also exceeded, as about 30.2 million trips were achieved against a target of 10.8 million trips. So this in itself basically continues to highlight the importance of this particular market for South Africa's tourism industry. The next observation is in relation to governance at the entity. Here, the Minister of Tourism has been hard at work in trying to stabilize governance at South African tourism. This has resulted in the following developments. The South African Tourism Board, which was dissolved on the 21st of March 2023, a new board was appointed within that same year, and their term ended on 28 February 2024. That was the interim board that was basically appointed by the minister. And then a new board was also appointed after February, basically a full board in this particular instance, on 8 March 2024. New developments have been subsequently noted by the committee, where it has been noted that the chairperson as well as deputy chairperson of the new board have basically resigned, and the minister has since appointed a new chairperson as well as deputy chairperson. So issues of instability there in terms of leadership continue to be an area of important oversight for the committee. Another observation here is in relation to vacancies, specifically at senior management level at the entity. Key positions such as your Chief Executive Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Conventions Bureau Officer, Chief Strategy Officer, Head of Internal Audit, and as well as the Company Secretary were for quite a long time occupied by acting incumbents. But you find also that the finance division in itself experienced instability during the financial year, and this in itself contributed to the regression in terms of the audit outcomes, as well as performance of the entity. However, some of these posts have been filled. One of them is the company secretary post, which was filled in January 2024. The position of CEO, Chief Executive Officer, as well as your CFO, as well as your Chief Strategic Officer were also filled in March 2024. The Chief Marketing position has also been subsequently filled, and that was towards the end of the financial year. However, one post that remains vacant is that of the Head of Internal Audit. Then the next portion of the report speaks to the recommendations that have been made by the committee to both the Minister of Finance as well as the Minister of Tourism. 8.1 looks at the recommendations to the Minister of Finance. In this particular instance, when it comes to the tourism portfolio, the committee recommends that the Minister of Finance appropriates more budget, specifically ring-fenced, to capitalize the Tourism Transformation Fund as well as the Tourism Equity Fund. That the Minister of Finance appropriates ring-fenced budget to facilitate tourism development and growth in villages, townships, as well as small towns. That the Minister of Finance approves the filling of vacancies in the department to enable the sector to create more jobs and also continue its contribution to the country's GDP. The following recommendations by the committee are to the Minister of Tourism. The first portion is specifically with regard to the Department of Tourism. Here, the committee recommends that the Minister ensures that the department's vacancy rate is below the threshold of 10%. The next one is that the Minister of Tourism ensures that the department improves planning across its programs, and this is to avoid underspending throughout the year. 8.2.3, the Minister of Tourism is recommended to compel the implementing agents for both the Tourism Equity Fund, which is CEFA, and then the Tourism Transformation Fund, that would be, oh Lord, I forgot what are they called, Empowerment, NEF, yes, sorry, that they expedite the disbursement of the funds to ensure that there's a faster pace when it comes to transformation in the sector. The next point or recommendation by the committee to the Minister of Tourism is in relation to the Tourism Transformation Council, and that they execute their mandate effectively in order to monitor the state of transformation in the sector and also advise the Minister on actions required in order to improve the sector's transformation. The next recommendation to the Minister of Tourism is that she ensures that there's effectiveness when it comes to, she ensures the effectiveness of the capacity building programs of the department and collaboration with other stakeholders such as the private sector as well as your provincial authorities. That the Minister of Tourism verify the department conducts effective oversight over the implementation of its infrastructure projects by the Development Bank of Southern Africa. The recommendation is that the Minister of Tourism ascertains that the department empowers its project management unit through expediting the employment of the required officials as approved by the Department of Public Service and Administration. That the Minister initiates the process of amending legislation and tables the Tourism Amendment Bill to Parliament in the following financial year. That the Minister improves the internal audit function of the department to detect issues with the implementing agents of the department. Recommendation 8.2.9 is that the Minister expedites the process of developing a centralized database of all your tourist guides at the national level. The next one is that the Minister engages the private sector to encourage travel among South Africans by exploring a differentiated pricing mechanism between locals and international tourists. So there you're looking at dual pricing where your locals tend to pay less for visiting attractions when compared to your international travelers. The next point is in relation to your licensing of tour operators, and that the minister make a follow-up in this particular instance with the entity that falls under the Department of Transport, which is your National Public Transport Regulator, and ensures that they eliminate the current backlogs when it comes to these licenses. The next recommendation to the department is in relation to the tracking of SMMEs. Mental programs in this particular instance are being impactful in actually providing the required support to these. The next recommendation is that the minister follow up on all the cases that have been opened by the department with law enforcement agencies placed, and consequence management ensures and that cases are basically closed in this regard. The next point is also to ensure that the minister provides feedback to the committee on the forensic reports that have been commissioned by the department.